Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Third Half Podcast presented by Ally Marketing. I'm Jared Klepp along with Gerard Iscani. We're your hosts tonight on the Third Half Podcast with the FCS Live team. We got some fun things to talk about today, and later on, in about 20 minutes or so, Coach Fabian from Ole Futsal Club is going to be on, so we're really excited to have him on the show, Gerard.
Yeah, really excited. It was great working with him, covering a couple of the games in Grand Rapids, getting to know him. Really excited to hear more about his program and some of the exciting announcements coming to FCS as well.
Absolutely. Really excited for that. And before we get there, I just want to let you all that are watching know, if you have a question for Coach Fabian of Ole, go ahead and put it in the chat there. He's going to be on in about 15 or 20 minutes or so, and we would love to get to your questions and see what kind of things you might have to ask him. But until we get to that point, let's talk about the weekend that we just had, because we had two great games, including one that was two defending champions of two different leagues coming head-to-head.
Yeah, we had some really big matchups for the top five teams playing this weekend, and really two outstanding games. When you think about the first game that we had the opportunity to witness, Lansing City and Jenga, they played really tight in the first half, and it was a really close game, and Lansing City pulled away second half.
That one ended up, I believe it was 9-2 in that one. And then the other game, that was Grand Rapids Ole traveling to Detroit Imperial. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so that was a roller coaster. So Detroit Imperial took a 3-1 lead early. They had a red card incident that completely changed the momentum of the game, and Ole ran away with it the rest of the way.
And that one ended up, I believe it was that 9-7, 9-6?
9-6.
9-6, I believe it was 9-6.
9-5.
9-5? I thought maybe they got one at the end there, but that's all right. We'll talk about this later. I only got through the first half of that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's go ahead and take a look. We have a couple of clips that we want to play for you guys. We're going to take a look at first from the Lansing City and Jenga game. So this is the first goal of the match, and tell us a little bit, while I'm getting it pulled up, why this one was so special, you think?
Yeah, one of the things that Lansing City has really worked hard to develop over the season is creative flow on offense. And when you look at this, one of the things that we know is very common is the Jeremy Kleppel effect. You see the entire defense really being attracted to him, like almost like magnets being polarized to him. And when you think about where Saltzman's able to get some space on this play, Drew Barney makes a fantastic back post run. And so you see in the entire elements of creativity coming together, and Lansing City's using that attraction of Jeremy Kleppel to their advantage to be able to open up other team members to be able to attack.
So let's take a look at this one as we pull it up here. So we got Kleppel has it. Jenga's kind of backed off a little bit here, and he's coming up on the half line. So let's play this one through, and then we'll talk about it just a bit. The ball comes to little back heel roll all the way to Jack Fisher on the far post. Great movement there. Honestly, of the goals that we've seen this season, this was one of the prettiest as far as players moving around.
Yeah, it really was. One of the things that has attracted me to futsal is the control, the passing, the precision. And it's just a beautiful pass by David Saltzman. He puts the ball in a perfect spot for Drew Barney to finish. And it's a high level of skill for Barney to put that away, too, because he's got to stretch to make sure he gets it. It's really reminiscent of a goal we watched last week with Jack Fisher. So when we saw this, I was thinking of Jack, and I was like, wow, like the same exact play, just the pass came from a different angle.
Did you see the little dance afterwards? Look at the little dance. Here he goes. Yeah, there he is. That was Drew Barney with the yellow. They look like bananas to me. I always think of yellow banana shoes for Drew Barney. But love that Drew Barney dance afterwards for that one. And we've seen there was actually a play in this game. I don't have it clipped, but Jenga almost had something very similar. Mm-hmm. Actually, no, I'm remembering that wrong. It was just a missed back post, but it just got through. But we have seen this kind of play, scattered throughout some of the games. It was really cool to see one, come all the way through. You mentioned the Jeremy effect and how it draws players. This is possibly there was two really clear examples of the Jeremy effect in this last game, and this is one of the ones that I feel like is the most clear to see how, when we talked about impact players for Lansing City, it's like who is going to take advantage of what's created by Jeremy.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick look at this one. So he's got it up here just across half. Right now, Jenga, they're all kind of marking either in a, I don't know if they're in a zone or a man. It kind of looks like a man, but, we can kind of see. But as Jeremy takes it this way, you'll just see the help leaves Trezor wide open. So here he goes. And those three players come in, and a great finish from Trezor Crispain on that one.
Yeah, incredible finish. And it's one of the things, so Matt Helishar was talking about this before the game, that when you're wanting to know about difference makers, you can never leave Jeremy out of the equation because of the attraction that he has to all of the defenders. And it's something that we knew Jingo was going to do. They did this last time they played. They've really done this in many of their games, is have a really strong, collapsible defense that really attracts to the strongest players on the court. And right here, three defenders going right for Jeremy. And on this play, if they had better defensive structure from the weak side, they might have been able to prevent the goal.
You're saying if there's a tuck in here.
Yeah, and so it's one of the things that they have to know that the back post run is coming. And as a defensive unit, if you're going to have players protecting the front side, then somebody has to protect the back side. So what he's doing right now is actually not impacting the play at all. And so when we think back to some of the opportunities that Fikret Hasovic had defensively against Ole, this is the same type of opportunity, to where if that player follows the back post run and reads his defense appropriately, then it's not a goal.
Well,
and we still
but here's
see the effect.
Here's the thing, though, that's interesting about this is if you look at where this play, where it was just a second ago. So this is the back post player right here, the defender. So he actually pulls up.
Yep.
Because I think he probably doesn't know that he's pulling up. And so really it's just a matter of two guys going, because I don't think you can really reasonably expect this guy to make it to the back post in time, because he's kind of covering this pass. It's not really his role. It's not until this guy takes the step. And I mean, he would have to have flash super speed to get there in time.
But even where he's at now, he doesn't make a play there. So even if he couldn't get there, even if he couldn't get there, that's fine. But you can see he reads it late. And so it's not that it's his fault, not that the goal was his. I mean, it's a fantastic play by Lansing City. But when you think about what made Jenga successful, it was the defensive solidarity. And the other three players left their area. So, I mean, they didn't cover what they were supposed to. They got sucked in, which is what Jeremy does. Yeah. And he didn't read what his teammates did. And so, like, that's the part that becomes challenging, is it's a fantastic play from Lansing City. But for Jenga to be successful, all of their players need to be on the same page. And if three players get sucked out, the last player's got to help Tommy Sawa.
And we saw another example of that. I don't have this up here, but there was the free kick from Jeremy. If you watch the game, there was actually two times that the goalkeeper got whistled. It was for a 5-second violation, right? So or 4 second. Yeah, he went.
Yeah, he went past. 5.
He went 5. Yeah. So the 4-second violation. And so the first time, Jeremy just blasted at the wall, and the second time, Vu is just on the post, and everyone turns. Yep. And then he just passes it right to Vu, and it's like, I mean, I get it. I would be bracing myself for that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of pain after that first one.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, just changing gears just a little bit to the other game. That one was played on a much different surface. We actually want to talk a little bit about that, but first I want to show this play. It has to do with relieving the pressure, and you had mentioned, we talked about it before going on air. It was the way that Detroit Imperial handled pressure was much different after Depoche left the game because of the red card, and this is one of the clear examples of how he really helped them handle that pressure. So let's just take a quick look at this while I'm pulling it up. What are the viewers expecting to see here?
Yeah, this is one of the things that makes futsal amazing. Like, this level of skill, the ability to control the ball, withhold the pressure and to be able to maintain. At moments, we have 3 different Ole players that are unable to capture the ball or to relinquish control of it away from Depoche. So when you think about having him in the game in the first half and how they played and they were up 3-1, and then to lose this level of skill, it's not surprising to see what happened the rest of the game.
So here we are. Michael Forbes gets the ball in his hands, and they're starting their possession out of the back, and that's where it begins. So he rolls it to the near side of the screen. Davide Depoche with it there. Now he dribbles to the side, 2 defenders on him, and then goes right across the goal line. Brave move, and gets it out, and then they start going on the attack. And unfortunately, I don't believe it ends up in a goal or anything like that. But just that kind of pressure. I mean, in the game of futsal, one of the things that makes the game so amazing is that you are always under that pressure. But the amount of players in the league that can handle pressure like this is very few, I would say.
Yeah, not a lot. And we haven't seen moments like this often. And so even though this play doesn't really develop in a way that leads to anything, this, in a lot of ways, is similar to the Jeremy Kleppel effect. So what happens is defenses now recognize what he can do and how he can do it, and so they have to change the way that they play with him in the game, right? But once he leaves, it's one of the things that made Ole successful this weekend was their high press. Once he leaves, Detroit Imperial struggles breaking down the high press.
And, interestingly, one of the big things and one of the reasons why it was so tight there is the court size there at Detroit Imperial. And there's another clip that I wanted to show that kind of shows this the difference of court. And we wanted to discuss that a little bit until we get to the segment where Coach Fabian of Ole Futsal Club is going to be coming on. So just a reminder, those of you watching, if you have any questions you want to ask Coach Fabian of Ole Futsal, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'd love to get to your questions. And his segment's been coming up in about 5 or 10 minutes. But before we get to that, just want to talk about, there's something that you have to notice when you're watching, if you watch both of these games this weekend, is that the surface that they were played on were just vastly different and really has a big impact on how the game is played.
It does, and we've seen it a lot of times with some of the differences we talked about with Jenga as well, playing in Cincinnati, playing here. This court that Detroit Imperial plays, Football Sala, is really narrow. It's most likely the most narrow court in the league, and it changes the way Ole had to play. And so we saw a different Ole team, at least from style, in this game than we saw in the games that we got to go to Grand Rapids and see. And one of the biggest changes was the lack of possession. And so that's partly the thing that I want to talk to Fabian about and see, like, was it intentional to have the high press because of the court size? Like, what role did the court size play into the game planning, into the strategy? Because they clearly chose to do something different. So was it court size or was it because of the opponent?
And maybe a little bit of both, and we'll see when we get a chance to talk to him. But this was right before Detroit's third goal. It actually is goal number 3, and it's actually a great shot. And one of the reasons I wanted to show it is because we're gonna have a little bit of voting going on for all you guys in the chat. Jake, if you're still here, I don't know if you have the ability to make a poll, but I would love for you to make a poll at some point because I'm going to put up a couple of goals to see what you guys think is the goal of the week. This one, I believe, should be in the running. However, the camera didn't quite catch it, so that's the only reason why. But it seemed like it was probably pretty good. But I think it really does show some of the effects that a small court can have, and it's not the entirety of it, but it is a piece of it. So you can see Imperial's attack begins here near the camera, and then they get to the half line, and then a little check in from number 12, Sandro Litwin, and then he puts it into the back of the net. And I mean, I wish that we would have seen that one on fully on camera because it looked like it was a heck of a shot. But the thing that's very interesting is that they're at the halfway mark, and then a check inside. He gets the ball. There's not a ton of space between him and the half line here.
Yep.
So he gets the ball in an area that's very near the half line. but it's close enough that a turn and a touch and a shot is very reasonable for a shot on goal. Now you go to a place like Lansing City Arena, the other game of that week, this is a much more difficult shot to make because a touch inside, 2-3 touches inside the half line, you're still pretty far away from goal. Granted, this is still a great shot, and like I said, I think it would be up for one of the goals of the week if we had it fully on camera. But it just kind of shows part of what happens on a smaller court is you have opportunities like this where because Detroit's first goal happened in a very similar way. Davide Depoce had it, and he was in a very similar spot, and he just kind of turned and shot before Ole had a chance to get in front. But it's well, did you pull up the FIFA regulation rules for the court size? Because this is what's crazy to me.
Yeah.
This is what's crazy to me is that there is, like, when you watch and when you play, because I've played on both of these kinds of courts. I remember we would go play in a court that's very similar to this, or maybe even smaller, just like a high school gym, and played on larger surfaces as well. But it really feels like a totally different game. It really feels different. And one of the things that's crazy to me is that in the rule book for FIFA, which you're pulling up right now, is there's two different regulations for court size, one for non-international play and one for international play, which I assume is international, USA versus Canada, that's international game. It's not like where it's played. It's just if the teams are international teams. That's the impression I'm under.
Yeah, it's really any FIFA regulated game or FIFA sanctioned game. So that's really like the determination.
But when the first one, like the non-international, wouldn't that still be like it's in the FIFA rules, right?
Yeah, so
because that's part of my point is that they're both in the FIFA rules, but especially when you look at the length of the court, like length and width, the minimum for international 38 by 42 meters, right? Or the minimum length is either 38 minimum for international play, but in non-international play, it can go down to 25 meters.
Yeah,
that is such a big difference. And what's the width? What's the width difference?
The width difference is 20 is the minimum for international and 15 for domestic.
So it's just like, it's kind of crazy to me. And we were talking a little bit about this off air. What do you think is going on here with this?
So we would have to infer a lot, right, to know. And
so we're on risky waters.
Yeah, risky waters here.
We're inferring a lot.
When you think about where the game started, right? The game started in 1930 in Argentina, and it really came from a lack of places to play outdoor soccer. So they wanted to have more places to play, and so they looked at indoor opportunities. And how do you create more opportunities indoor? Well, you give the ability to vary the court size, because if we didn't have this ability to vary court size, Detroit Imperial very likely wouldn't be in our league because the court size is a lot smaller. And we see a different type of game. And part of the beauty of having that ability to have a smaller court size and still let it be legal is that you're creating a more inclusive space for all varieties of situations. Like, we don't know exactly why their court can't be wider.
Yeah.
Right? It's a limitation of the building. And so now we've allowed that building to be a part of the organization of the league. And so when you think about, it's actually a great thing that we do have the variance, but the reason that we have the international sanctions, and I don't know for certainty, but just on some of the things that I've read, any like FIFA sanctioned event, so even if it was like some type of club competition that was FIFA sanctioned, they would use the international standards for that.
Interesting. So my question is, like, I mean, I think it's great to have more people be able to play the game, but it's like, at what point is it not futsal anymore? Because this is just from my experience playing and watching the game. It is a different game when you're playing on the court like Lansing City, 40 meters by 20, versus playing on a court like we have that we're seeing at Detroit Imperial, where it's much smaller. And I mean, watching the game too, like as a fan, I talked a little bit about this, and I was watching back these games, and I'd watched a lot of futsal, so I was kind of getting a little bit tired of watching futsal because it was like Saturday and Sunday, and I was watching a lot. So I only got through about half of the Detroit and Ole game. But one of the reasons why I decided to turn it off is because I was getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, we just saw a great play. Like, we've seen some good shots. This is not like, I've been very entertained by these teams. It's not the teams. It's like, in order to have some kind of attack and play, it's the ball just has to bounce your way, has to go out of bounds, has to be a transition. And I was, I'd love to hear other thoughts. Anyone in the chat, if you have other thoughts, that's great, because I would love to hear it. But for me, it was like, I went through and I said, okay, in this game, how are teams completing phase one? How are they getting from, ball in keeper hands, keeper restart, to in the attacking half or close to the attacking half? Like, how are they breaking high pressure if there's high pressure, and how are they getting the opportunity to have an attack? And it was like, hardly ever was there any kind of building out of the back. And I think it's literally just because you don't really have the space to. Like, the ball just has to go out of bounds. Like, I made notes about the goals and the chances in the first half. Detroit's first goal was off a transition. Detroit's second goal was off of transition and a set piece. Ole's first goal was off a set piece. Detroit's third goal, it was building up, but it was low pressure. So they basically came up to the half line, right? And then, one second, I'll let you go. I just want to finish this real quick. So, and then Ole had their second goal. It was off of a power play, essentially. I don't know if you call it a power play in futsal, but that's what I'm calling it right now. Detroit was a player down because of the red card. And then Ole had an opportunity in the first half, and it was a transition. And then they had another goal, and it was a set piece. So in every single one of those goals, it was either a set piece or a transition or a low press. And it's like, there's so much of the game that you're just seeing. It feels like it just kind of goes to waste. Like, it's just, the ball goes this way, out of bounds. Out of bounds. Kicks over here. The goalie throws it that way. And it's like, there's no. So it comes back to this. At what point is futsal not futsal anymore because the court is too small?
Well, this is still futsal because the court size is legal. But here
is it though? I don't know.
It is. Well, we're trusting in the league and in the teams because all.
I'm sure. I don't know. I didn't mark it out.
It is
right. I didn't walk it.
Right. So I have a background in baseball, and one of the things that came up often in baseball is this idea of like a pitcher's park or a hitter's park, right? And you think of Coors Field, which was absolutely a hitter's park, and you'd have home run after home run after home run, and they're always setting records. The ball just flies different there, and pitchers didn't like to go there because of it. But teams had to adjust. Teams had to know that it was just going to be a different game. And it's one of the things I really appreciated watching Ole in this game, because they had to play different. And so one of the beauties of having a variation in court size is it actually adds a dynamic to the game, because teams have to prepare. And I want to talk to Fabian about it. How did he prepare for it? Because I saw a lot of the similarities in this game with Ole's approach to the game when they went to Cincinnati. So Jenga has played on a couple of different courts this year. The normal court that they play on is a little wider.
Yeah, but it's much bigger than the other one.
It's much bigger. And then they have a narrow court that's probably...
It's probably smaller than this.
Yeah, it probably is.
Like, I don't think...
it might not be regulation.
Yeah,
maybe not. But anyway, I had the opportunity to keep score during that game. And so I'm managing the clock. And it was almost impossible to keep up with the action because the ball would go out of play so fast. So it's like start the clock, stop the clock, start the clock. So there's no possession at all.
Yeah.
And so that was one of my first introductions to Ole. And it left me really wanting more, and a lot of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't futsal, it was something different. But one of the things, and this is a beautiful moment we got to watch in this game from Davide Depoce with his ball control, that's not something we see regularly on all these other courts, and why not? Right? And I think a large part of it is because he spends so much time practicing here that's a skill that's had to naturally develop. And so what I would expect when I see Imperial players over the years, I would expect them to have some of those more technical ball control skills because of the court and because of the way they have to play. Whereas a team like Ole, it's not that they won't develop those skills, or it's not like they can't, but it's not as much of a requirement based on their court.
Well, I want to get over to, I know we could probably talk about this for a while, but I want to get over to getting Fabian on the show. He's going to be on probably in about 5 minutes here. Fabian, if you're watching, I know I told you, I think like 5 minutes ago, but we're getting to you, so don't worry. We're going. So I want to get, the last thing I just want to say is I feel like you get to this point where, like, to me, it feels like, doesn't really feel like a variance. It feels like one place I don't know how far away the 3-point line is in basketball, but it's like the 3-point line is different. Like that's how it seems to me. Is like now it's not just like a variance in the game. It's like your whole play can be different. And I know that like I have a lot of my influence in futsal comes from Lansing City. I played for Lansing City. I've been around Lansing City a lot. They play in the big court sizes, and bigger courts really like serve the way that they play. But what I would suggest and what I would propose is that I believe that the larger court sizes allow for more of the true game of futsal to come out. And here's what I mean by that. I mean the style that Lansing City plays, they try to come out and dictate the game and play the way that they want to play. Playing on a small court can punish teams that try to do that. And it actually works more in the favor of teams that, like if you want to counterattack and you want to sit back, it allows that to be more of an advantage. And I just don't think that's how the game should be played. Like I think you should have, like if you have the skill and the ability to be able to try to dictate the game, you shouldn't be punished for it. You shouldn't, like, if the lever's going to go, one way or the other, I think it should lean more towards if you have a better team and you're able to dictate the game, you should be able to do that rather than give more of an advantage to counterattacking. And go ahead and say one more thing, and then we'll get to Fabian.
Well, excited to get Fabian on, but I think you miss out on the heritage of the game if you do that. If you say, like, we have to only do this larger size court, and this is it, we miss out on a lot of that scrappiness that has to develop.
But the international play is 38 meters minimum by foot. Like, it's like, why is there a difference in the FIFA rules?
Imagine if Futsal Sala was not an official court.
I would rather see this game on a bigger court.
No.
You know what I mean?
But that's the point, though, is if in their community they don't have a bigger court, if this is the only court that they have and this is the only way that they can play, if this court size wasn't legal, we wouldn't have that team. Like I think the mindset that I have with it is like, if we don't have this, we don't have them, right? If the court has to be bigger. I agree 1,000%. The bigger court size leads to a more attractive game and a more appealing game and a more skill-based game, I would say. Whereas the counterattacking, it's not that it's not skill-based, but you don't need as much of the technical skills.
Yeah, there's a reason why when you are a less skilled team, you park the bus.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a reason for that because you'd still have opportunities.
So here's the part about Detroit Imperial. Typically, they're not a park the bus team.
No.
Right? So they have the skill, right? And I think that in some ways it's actually benefited them. And who knows, maybe in the future this is something we could look into for potential like championship games of having like a home and away, because there is a difference in some of the court size. It does play a factor into the game. And to truly see who the best team is, it would actually be really cool to see how they play on different court sizes, because it is a different game.
So maybe we'll talk about court sizes more another time here on the Third Half podcast. But for now, that's going to wrap up that segment. We're going to go to a quick break. We're going to bring Fabian Rodriguez. I almost said the wrong last name. That would have been really embarrassing. I usually just say like Coach Fabian. So we're going to bring Fabian Rodriguez on from Ole Futsal Club just in a couple of minutes. So if you have any questions, I already saw some coming in on the chat. That's amazing. We're going to try to get to as many of those as we can. But we're going to go ahead and bring him on, and then we'll see if we can sneak in those goals of the week opportunities. So we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Going to the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Third Half Podcast. I'm Jared Kleppel along with Gerard Escani, and we have a very special guest on with us right now. This is Fabian Rodriguez from Grand Rapids, Ole. Fabian, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me, Jared.
Awesome. Well, we are going to we have some fun things to talk about. I actually got to get you on our screen so Gerard can see you too. So Gerard, you got any questions for Fabian while I do this?
I mean, really too many, honestly, too many. The first question I want to ask Fabian is we saw an outstanding performance against Detroit Imperial. We knew it was going to be a tough game for you all. What was the game plan going in? And really one of the questions that's burning on my mind is how did the size of the court impact the game plan?
The week before going into the game, we actually had a plan of playing a 4-0 formation, which we haven't really done yet this season throughout a full game. It's primarily been a 3-1, and the plan defensively was actually to start a little bit lower. We've been high pressing the last few games, so we just decided to change things up, and the plan was eventually as the game went on to go back and forth from a low press to a high press. But there was just a lot of things that went on in the first half that just forced us to make adjustments and change things up as the first half went on. And then going into the second half, we came out with a completely different plan that we did not plan for in training heading into the game. So yeah, there's just so many things went on in the first half. We just had to adjust. We knew the court was going to be different, and we had prepared for that as much as we could. But yeah, we just had to completely change our strategy heading into the end of the first half.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you caught our segment just before you came on. We were talking about kind of court sizes and things like that. And I've had the opportunity, I think maybe you were on the call too, but we actually were able to speak with you over the phone in some, like before some matches to kind of get your take when you were playing on the small court. And your guys' court at home is much larger. So one last question about the court, and then we're going to move on to some other stuff. Tell me a little bit about, from a coaching perspective, your perspective, in when you have a place like your home court, which is a large court, or the Lansing City Arena, and then some places like the place you just played. I know Jenga's had some small courts as well. What is it like for you in how you and the team prepare when there's different kinds of size surfaces that you play on in the year?
I mean, it's a completely different sport. It's a completely different game going from our court to the court that we played against Imperial. Everything from the build out in the back and keeping possession, the timing of our runs to support each other are just completely different than playing on the big court. And then the other big one that really affected us in the first, I would say, 10-15 minutes, because I thought it was just a really sloppy game, but defensively we made a ton of mistakes. And when we step up in high press, it's a completely different strategy doing that on a big court than a small court. So I mean, yeah, it is a different game.
Awesome.
It doesn't compare.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your thoughts on that, and I think we've talked enough about small and large courts for now, so let's move on to some other things. Before we get into, I'm sure we'll have some questions about the team and what you guys got going on, but we had a very special announcement come from the FCS and from Grand Rapids Ole Futsal Club about an FCS Women's League. So tell us a little bit about that, Fabian, and it sounds like you guys are going to be one of the founding member teams.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's been something we've been trying to push for years, and we've never had any consistency in it. So we're really excited to be part of this new league. We're hoping that the teams that come in are serious about it, and we can create some long-term goals and hopefully see that grow together with the men's side. But yeah, we're excited to hold tryouts and bring in a lot of our former Ole ABK players into the mix, bringing some new players in, and try to put a team out there that can be competitive and play some entertaining and exciting futsal.
What do you think it means, from a standpoint of growing futsal in the United States? I know that you're well aware that futsal is not the most. It's still a very young sport in the United States as far as structures and leagues and opportunities to play. What do you think this step means for women that are looking to play futsal? Like, do you feel like this is a key moment? I know that I believe you've had academies and opportunities for women to play in the past, but to have a league, FCS Women's League, what do you think that does for the women's game?
Well, for us personally, within our club or even in our area, I think younger kids being able to watch a women's game and be around it, I think will create a completely different culture to get our players excited about what's to come after U14, U15 age groups, and knowing that there's another pathway, just another option for players to continue to keep playing. And a lot of players, come out and watch our games. I'm speaking, within our youth club. They come out and watch our games. They have their role models. They have their favorite players on their team, and we see this a lot on the men's side. And it just creates a bigger passion and love for the game because they can now see themselves one day maybe being part of of the men's team of a women's team. And just within our club, I think it helps it grow. And hopefully hopefully it continues to happen in other cities and other areas as well, and continues to drive futsal forward and get more youth clubs involved, and overall just grow the game of futsal in our area.
Yeah, and that's something that Gerard and I have been so excited to be a part of, is this growth of futsal in the United States. And Coach Fabian, you may not be aware, but Gerard has only been around the game of futsal for just a few months, and it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, there's a reason why it's drawn you in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think about is how successful you all have been in Grand Rapids. And it's one of the things that I got the opportunity to go to multiple games there now, and you can see it is a community effort. Like, it's not just the teams, it's not just like the individuals in that game that are playing that it's really important to. It's important to the community. And so it's just really cool to see, and your fans show up not only at the games, but they show up in the streams. They're celebrating. Like, just watching your fans in the chat against Imperial was so much fun because they were having so much energy and excitement for everything you all were doing. And it was cool. They're just showing up for Ole
Yeah.
and representing. And when I think about that, all the work that you all have done in that community and building, and we think about this transition to the FCS Women's League, what does the structure look like already for women with Ole? Like, you talked about having tryouts and different things, but do we already have a youth academy set up? Do you already have players that have been identified as like potential candidates? Like, is there a system in place?
My plan is to replicate what we did with our men's team. So
Mhm.
in the very beginning, when we started forming men's teams, it was made up of a lot of youth players.
Mhm.
So even a lot of the guys that are playing on the team now grew up playing on a men's team when they were 16, 17, 18 years old. We had our U18 or U17 boys team playing in adult leagues, or our reserve team at one point was made up of the majority of our youth players. So I think it's important to bring in as many of our younger players as possible. Right now we have a few high school girls teams, and being able to open it up to them next year as an option, and bringing in some actual adult players to kind of just balance out the physicality of games and bring in some experience, I think is going to be could be one of the ways we move forward in. But it's still a little early to know exactly what the interest is going to be like. But I love the idea of having a big core group of younger players, and create our own homegrown women's team, just like we did with our men's team.
Now, shifting the focus to to the team that you guys have this year and the play that you guys have had in the FCS this year. Right now, you guys haven't lost a game. You're undefeated. The only points you've dropped is your very first game in a tie against your in-city rivals, you could say, the Midwest United Blue. I've heard that blue and red kind of go back and forth. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm starting to pick it up, so I wonder if it's blue and red. I was hearing a lot of Grand Rapids is red after the last game, but I'm not going to say anything about that. That's what I heard. But tell us a little bit about your journey and your team's journey right now, as you've played every team in the league at least once, except for Mitwest, and you have remained undefeated. What's that journey been like, and what's been, in your mind, the key to getting to where you are at today, just on fire?
Well, I don't know how much of that is a talk within the players. I'm assuming a lot. I mean, I try not to talk so much about winning. I mean, my mindset is, we're going to make it to the finals and play and be in that game. But focusing more on just taking it game by game and continue to prepare and continue to add different ideas throughout the season. So by the time we do get to the semifinals and finals, we have lots of options to be able to make adjustments and handle different types of game plans that we're going to see. But I mean, for me personally, that's kind of how I take the season. But I mean, it's nice to continue to get the win. But for me, most importantly, is our team improving? Is our team following the plan? Are they continuing to be true to our playing style and the way that we try to train? I think for me, that's probably the biggest piece of it, because I feel like if we're doing that, then that's really what's going to give us the chances of actually winning the game.
We had a question from the chat. This was actually a while ago, so thank you to this viewer who put this chat in before even Fabian got on. But they pointed out how well you guys play defense. So tell us about how you guys. Literally the question is, how does the Ole team play such great defense? It seems like teams aren't able to handle it.
You know what? I would say back in 2015, 2016, I had the opportunity to be around Keith Tozer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Keith. He's the technical director for US Youth Futsal. Up until that point, Ole or ABK, our main focus was attacking, and we literally had a couple defensive training sessions per season. Our focus was just to attack, and I picked up a lot of great ideas from him and kind of took us into a different direction defensively, just really getting a better understanding of the man-to-man system. And then from there, um, along the way and over the years, just picking up different concepts and different ideas to defend. But I'm not saying we spend a ton of time working on defending, but I feel like we've kind of created a system that works for us. And originally, when we were in that mindset of only attacking, we just made so many easy mistakes, so many amateur mistakes, that we were kind of forced into really looking into that and addressing that and taking bigger steps and improving it. So I feel like now it's just all these guys that have been through the process and been through our youth system, and a lot of the guys are coaches, just really understand the defending concepts that we try to play and implement into the club.
I'm going to go ahead and dive into the chat here and see if there's any other questions. But Gerard, go for it.
Off of that response, one of the things I think about seeing Ole really be one of the best defenses in the league, for me, so much of it comes down to effort. And so one of the things I think you have been incredibly successful at with your club is getting sustained effort. What do you think it is that you all do that creates that sustained effort for entire games?
I honestly think that there are a group of players in our team that play with a lot of passion and are very emotional, which can be a double-edged sword. But I think that type of mindset where you're sacrificing your body to tackle and get in front of shots and just do everything you possibly can to not give up anything easy is really contagious. Um, for example, with Sam, who is one of our fixos and does a great job defensively. I mean, just the emotion and the passion that he puts into the game easily, transmits into another player making a tackle, and I feel like we now have a group of players like that we can count on every game that are just going to bring that defensive effort that a lot of times we see, and sometimes players get a little too excited and then things can get a little crazy, a little out of hand. So it's just takes a little bit of also effort to kind of manage that. But I feel like that's where that fire and that the effort comes in defensively as well.
You talked about playing with passion and how it could be a little bit of a double-edged sword. But speaking of the passion, when we've been able to go to a few different venues this year to bring games, and one of the venues we got to go to a couple of times was Homeschool Building, where you guys play your games, and the environment and the fans. I mean, it was just awesome. Can you speak a little bit to just the fans of your club and the passion they bring and how it fuels you guys, both on and off the court?
Yeah, our club before Ole was ABK. We had a little bit of a history where just out of nowhere we had a few parents who've just started creating these chants on the sidelines and creating different songs and getting players involved, getting other parents involved.
This was in your youth academy?
This is in ABK when we were at ABK Futsal Academy. We'd go to tournaments. We'd have at that time there was men's divisions.
Okay, so it was the men's team of ABK.
The men's team of
Got it.
ABK.
Okay, got it.
Our youth side start seeing it. They'd just follow suit during youth games, during
Wow.
semifinals and finals, and it kind of just became a thing. But when we went through that transition from ABK to Ole, we kind of start to see that, kind of fade away. But in the last couple of years, now there's other families that are kind of stepping up and kind of filling that role. I mean, even this last game that we played at home against, I guess, Midwest United, we had a few families that came up to us and like, "Hey, are we okay with bringing all these noisemakers?" And
they had a lot of stuff. We were like
Yeah.
yelling at each other. We were like right next to each other. We're literally, our voices go from here to here for both of us. In that building, we're like, and and Grand Rapids Ole gets another chance, and we're like yelling at each other. I'm like, hey, can you guys is it Juan that does the in games
Juan.
sound? I was like, Juan, can you turn that down for a second because we're trying to set up. Can we turn on the music just for a second because we got to talk to each other? But it's amazing. I don't want any of that to ever change. That was awesome. So fun. It's so fun.
Well, if we have time for another question, one of the things that I think a lot of fans will be wondering and curious about, for those that don't know a lot about Ole Futsal Club, if you look close on Fabian's chest right now, you can see that logo for Ole Futsal Club. It says Latican Style. Fabian, you and I had a talk about Latican Style, and you really helped me understand, and I saw it on the court. I'd love for you to give just a little bit of explanation, just kind of share, what is the Latican Style?
So the word Latican is just a combination of Latino and American. So the concept is taking the best of two different worlds. In my opinion, it's the culture and the way you handle the ball in Central America and South America, the way you play, just bringing the street soccer game and make it more organized, in a more professional setting, combining with American U.S. soccer schools, the discipline, the organization, and just finding a better balance between the two. that's where originally the word came from. Um, as I was thinking of an identity of something that can a term or a word that would represent the way that we would play. So that's how it kind of originated. Now it's kind of taken a bigger, um, I guess, a bigger life where it's now a combination of different concepts in futsal rotations and futsal techniques, but still creating this discipline and this balance, not being a team where we're just dribbling too much, and going and turn it into a more of an individual game, but
Hmm.
also the possession, getting everybody involved and everybody plays a role, and there's just more discipline, more organization. So it's just a combination of those two worlds.
Any more you wanted to
Well, I
comment on
mean,
that?
there's so much more. Even as you're saying that, Fabian, one of the things I love about watching Ole is how your team plays together. Like to see how they communicate. Not defensively, we talked about that earlier, right? We talked about the defensive structure, the effort. That's all fantastic. But what you just talked about too is like not just having somebody that goes out there and just dribbles the ball around, right? Not somebody that just goes out there and is like dominating possession, but really like playing through each other. And so it's always been really fun to watch. Even the Diaz twins. It's one
Mhm.
of the things I keep seeing time and time again. It's like they know where each other are going to be on the court at all times.
Yeah, they have pretty good chemistry together.
Another question that I wanted to get to is it's very noticeable watching your team play that you guys take very particular notice of set pieces. And it seems like maybe even more so than we've seen other teams in the league. Tell us about your take on set pieces. Obviously, it's clear that they're important for you guys. You score off a lot of them. Tell me a little bit about your thought process in preparing for set pieces and how you kind of view those and how they've gotten to this point where it's very clear you guys practice them a lot and you have plays and that sort of thing.
So my very first coaching course that I attended for futsal, I heard the majority of goals in futsal get scored off of counterattacks. The second most goals get scored off of set pieces. When I heard that, I was like, okay, so I have to be a lot more intentional in what I spend our time doing during training. So this is something that I kind of took back for our youth club and made it a goal for us to get to a point where our whole entire club understood the exact same play, the exact same plays for corner kicks, for kick-ins, for free kicks, from goal clearances. So we have all these plays that our entire club follows and understands. So with our coaching staff or with our players, a lot of our players are also coaches. They get that repetition for themselves, teaching their kids, and a lot of our players grew up playing through our youth academy. So I feel like our players have had so much practice, just repeating over and over as a coach or as a player throughout the years, where now it's not so much about understanding the play, it's about understanding everything that can go wrong in that play. Every team's going to defend it a little bit differently. Everybody's going to have a different type of slightly different angles that they cut off. So the key for us has been understanding everything that's going to go wrong in our play in order to improvise and think quickly on the spot to make whatever play work. So it doesn't really matter what the opposing team understanding what we're going to do. It's just about us being able to improvise and understand which variation of our play we're able to pull off depending on how the other team defends.
So the natural next question becomes, if we wanted to go deeper, Fabian, and get the full-on analysis.
You
Can
love
tell
analysis.
us more? I do. Like I was just, there's this really great show on YouTube where you can watch like somebody explain something to like a 5-year-old and like a high school student.
Oh,
And then
explain it like I'm 5
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you just explain it to us like we're new fans to futsal. Explain it to us like we're graduate students and we're masters of the
Are you
art.
sure?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know about this. Man. You're putting us up there. I don't know.
No, this is for the fans, not for me. This is for the fans.
Everyone,
these are for the experts.
I can explain something that happened, interesting that happened in the last game.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So there was a moment where our plan was to go in and low press, or at least start with a low press, but then we got scored on. So then that goes out the window. Now we're stepping up and we're high pressing. But in the trap or in the way that we're stepping up to press, if we have a player stepping up to press the ball and we have a supporting player stepping up to cover, it's part of one of our press. If the supporting player doesn't stay high when a player from their team rotates and runs through, and it just kills that entire play. So there was a moment with Davide, for example, had the ball in the back and he's dribbling out of pressure. I think at one point it was like 2 or 3 of our players chasing him.
Yeah, we showed it earlier today.
Yeah.
It was actually quite impressive the way that he was able to get out of that. I mean, he was right on the goal line. Like he dribbled right across the goal line, and there was like almost a trap in the corner with 2 of your players and another player on the other side.
Well, I'm not taking anything away from him. I think I've seen him do that many times, and I think he's great with the ball in the back, and he does a good job dealing with that high press. But what started the whole thing is one of our players running out and chasing instead of staying. So then that creates the initial space. Our player pressing the ball is pushing the ball one way, but if the other supporting player doesn't stay, and follows his player back, then he's able to dribble into that space. Now everything after that is a chain reaction, because no matter how good we are defending, if we step up, it's going to create other spaces, going to allow other players to either receive the ball and give them that support. But anyway, my point in that is that one mistake just creates a different set of problems for us. And instead of us improvising there and reading that, we kind of fell into that trap. And that's a lot of times when set pieces, for example, do not work, where if somebody thinks of this great free kick play, they get a foul outside the arc, and they're only thinking about that play and everything they've practiced, and they completely forget about the defending team. So, and I feel like with set pieces, that's the experience that we have learned is being able to call something off and understand if this defender makes this decision, then it gives us these options. If a defender presses in this way, it gives us these different set of options.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Did you have one more question on that?
I mean, there's no limit.
You're
to
just
the
an
amount of
unlimited
questions.
question.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I'm gonna put a graphic on the screen. It's gonna be like, the Mario box with the question marks. I'm just gonna put it all over your screen because you got them all.
Well, I did ask Fabian before we started if he had over an hour, because we had 15 minutes planned, but we could take up the hour if we want.
Yeah. So go ahead, one more, and then we'll move on to another question.
On that play, right, one of the things that was interesting is that even though Depoche was able to navigate that high press and control the ball, nothing happened on the play. And so for me, that's another example of, even though there might have been some defensive breakdowns, Ole overall was solid enough defensively to shut down that attack, right? And so when you think about how difficult it is for everybody to be on the same page, would you say that was something that you all were really successful at doing, of locking down with a high press against Imperial?
I think in the second half we were. I don't remember that exact play, how that ended up after he broke out and what happened, but I feel like in the second half we improved, and we were able to adjust to the court, make some changes. Our attacking formation also played the change in that also played a bigger part in how we defended. So, but yeah, I feel like in the second half we went back defensively to our normal selves versus all the mistakes that we made in the first half.
And speaking to that, actually, I wanted to get to this question. This question comes from Luke Miller, who actually is on our production team for many of our games. And he has noticed this. This is what he said. He said, how do you handle the halftime tactical shift? Because in many games, it looks like Ole is shaky in half number one, and then second half comes out and dominates the play. Can you talk to that kind of a shift that you were talking a little bit about there? But based on this question, what's that like for you, the halftime adjustment?
In this game, I focused more, like before the half ended, I focused more on understanding why the goals happened and what was the recurring mistakes that we were making. So we talked a lot about being on the same page. So for example, if we're high pressing and the player stepping up to the ball is up high, but not really making the attempt to really get in there and force that player to drop his head, then that player can look for the longer pass. And the problem with that is our last player is going to front defend when we're high pressing.
Mm-hmm.
But if the player pressing the ball doesn't close that space, then that ball goes completely over our head. And it makes that player in the back look really bad, although they're defending the correct way. So if we're going to defend goal side with our last player, then the player up top cannot step up. They have to drop off. So we were always on a different page within our 4 players in the court. It was either one player not defending the right way, or 2 were defending one way, 2 were defending the other. And we were just that had to get addressed. So I'll give you an example. Their third goal in the first half, and I covered this at halftime, so they completely understand what I was trying to address. Their third goal in the first half, one of our players did not follow back on time, which forced Sam to shift over a little bit and cover that player, almost as this player is going to receive the ball, I got to cover back a little bit, and gave the player on the ball, I think it was Davide who scored, it gave Davide too much space. So by the time Sam decided to step up, then the shot was already taken. So that mistake didn't happen because Sam didn't cover that space. It happened because Sam was trying to cover somebody else who did not track their player on time. So us not dropping off right away, us not following our player, us hesitating to do that. And again, a big part of it was because of the court size. Anywhere you are on that court is a dangerous run. On a big court, it's not.
Yeah.
So so that played a big part in our bad defending. So we had to make those changes in the second half.
Yeah, I was actually going to try to see if I could pull that clip that you're talking about up. Let me see if I can find it, because it was I think we actually showed that goal. You said it was the third goal, right?
The third goal,
first half. Yeah. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, pretty sure that's the one we looked at. And what a great question from Luke. It's one of the things that when we think back to that game against Jenga, it was really a very similar storyline. Things were really tight in the first half, and then you all come out in the second half and really put your mark on the game. So it seems to be more of a consistent theme with Ole. When you explain how you're breaking that down, Fabian, that it really shows the value that you add to the team. And really being able to assess kind of like what's going on in the game, what adjustments and what changes do we need to make. And then it's really cool to see your team be able to work that out and to put that into action as well.
So I was going to get the clip up, but then I realized, Coach, you wouldn't be able to see it because we don't have that set up for you. So it would kind of be a little bit awkward. So we did show it earlier. It was that third goal, but it was, the player had some space on the inside, and you talked about a run that's not dangerous. We actually pulled that clip up as an example of the effects of a small court, right? Because he was only, the player was only a few meters inside the half line and turned and shot. And on your court, that shot is you would have to have just an out of your mind shot to score from that distance with a clear view. So very interesting that you bring that up there.
And then Fabian, the length of the court is smaller as well too, or was it just the width? And solid, because it's hard to tell on video, but it seems like it's not as long.
It's more the length. The width is actually not horrible.
Oh,
The width is a
Okay.
lot better than
I
the
would have
game we
guessed
played at
differently
Jenga.
seeing
oh
it
yeah,
on
yeah.
camera.
On camera, it
Yeah,
looks the opposite.
it's the length.
The length.
Oh,
Wow.
okay, okay.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because for those viewers that out there that aren't aware, Grand Rapids Ole coming into the FCS this year, you guys were defending champs of the NFPL, right? That's the league. I think I said it right.
Yep.
So now you guys are playing in the FCS, and this past game was kind of fun. You know, the defending champs FCS and played you guys defending champs NFPL. Tell me a little bit about your experience and your team's experience now playing in the FCS as opposed to the NFPL. I'm just curious because I don't really know a lot about the NFPL and what that's been like, and I'm just curious what your experience has been like this year. As a part of these two different leagues.
The NFPL changed a lot. It's gone through a lot of changes with teams coming in and leaving. And then the effect of COVID. Before COVID, we had a ton of teams in the NFPL. So it's changed. It has changed a lot. But one of the ways where I feel like games can get more competitive is when teams do have a full-time coach. Coaches that can help go back and forth and counter other decisions that are being made. If I'm making decisions on my side, how is the coach going to counter that with different adjustments? How am I going to come back and deal with that change? So at one point, a lot of the FPL teams did have head coaches, or somebody just a little bit more focused off the court. I feel like this season, Pierce is there with Detroit Imperial, but a lot of their teams I feel like have player coaches, and I feel like that changes the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But playing Futsal Factory was always great because Drew is a great coach, and I think he's always thinking about how to counter decisions that we're making, and we're going back and forth on that. So those are really fun games for that reason. But I think it's been great. FCS has a lot of talented players, and I'm excited to see how that's going to grow, and hopefully bringing in more teams to continue to see more playing styles and different ways how we can challenge ourselves to keep improving.
I thought it was interesting when you talk about player coaches, because when you say that, I go, yeah, like Jinga. Satoru Matsushima, he's a player coach. I know Lansing City has Coach Matt Alashari. We know that Jeremy has, I'm sure, a lot of influence there as well. But and Pierce is not a player coach. Trying to think of the other.
Well, Gio Garcia, he's on the roster.
He played one game because they were shorthanded.
He can play.
I think.
Yeah, he definitely has a skill and a talent. But he's a dedicated coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate your perspective, Fabian. It's just kind of as a fan on the outside looking in, I'm just curious about, I know that the world of futsal, we mentioned it earlier, is still very in its youthful stage in the United States, and we're trying to grow something and trying to see how we can, grow this game of futsal. So I appreciate your perspective on, where you guys have played. I got a couple more questions, and then we're going to be all done. So I'm going to let you sneak one in here before we wrap up.
Yeah, well, honestly, I would love to hear if you remember what happened in the locker room at halftime against Jenga. Because to go back to Luke's question in the chat about this last game, we saw a similar turnaround from first half to second half in Jenga. Fabian, do you remember that conversation and what changed?
I think the two biggest points in the Jenga game, I almost feel like the majority of the half we're talking about emotions and being able to play our game. We got to the 6 foul PK really quickly in that game. There's a ton of fouls, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of talking back and forth. So it got really emotional. So a big part of going back into the second half is just kind of going in with a different mindset and different approach to the game, which I thought we did, and it did turn the game around. But the biggest impact was us changing and adjusting our high press. And I think from that game and on, there was a big improvement in our high press, because I think we took that into the next few games after that. But that was probably the biggest change. And during that high press, on dealing with their high pivot player, which Lito in that game, I mean, he handled that situation really well, and I think we intercepted a ton of balls. Their goalkeeper started just throwing everything long. We kept intercepting balls and getting on the counter. We'd high press them and win balls. I think that was the biggest adjustment that we made.
Awesome. Well, want to move on to the last couple of questions here. I do want to throw this one out there because it was in the chat. Someone in the chat was like, hey, they took Fabian and they took men's national team and said, wonder if they want to put it together. Has that ever crossed your mind?
You know what? I've actually applied. I have applied 2 times for the men's team and 2 times for the women's team.
Okay, so it definitely hasn't crossed your mind.
I've never gotten a call back.
All right, awesome. Well, that one also came from Luke Miller. So there you go, Luke. I threw it out there for you. So I know those ones are always, put you on the spot in a way. So last couple questions. So first, someone actually very early on, they want to find it here so I can quote it correct. But it had to do. What do you feel like Grand Rapids is missing in futsal as a whole, and what is preventing it from moving forward? That was the question from the chat.
Like on the men's side, or just in general?
Just like in general, like futsal in Grand Rapids.
Well, I feel like Grand Rapids. I feel like there's more futsal in Grand Rapids than the majority areas in the country. Almost every youth club in Grand Rapids either has a futsal program or is involved in a futsal league. I don't know if you guys are aware, there's actually 3 futsal leagues in Grand Rapids. There's probably about 12, 15 outdoor futsal courts. Majority of the inner city Grand Rapids schools have futsal courts outdoors, where they're playing futsal outdoors every day. I mean, I think futsal is huge in Grand Rapids, so I'm not sure if I completely understand the question.
That's okay. I didn't ask the question. I was just kind of throwing it out there. Maybe maybe another way to say it would be if there is, obviously I think we think that the adding the women's side is a great step for futsal in Grand Rapids. But maybe that's a better question: is what is what will help grow futsal in Grand Rapids and spread to more parts of the United States?
I think giving it its place is as a sport is really important, instead of the majority of clubs treating it like a soccer development tool, to look at it as its own sport. And I feel that won't happen until soccer coaches give it an opportunity and really sit down and take a look at the game and understand the benefits of it. I feel like the majority of soccer coaches have an idea of futsal being just a skill game, or a street soccer game, but just the possession, the movements, the strategies, the understanding of creating space for yourself and others are just topics and areas that most coaches don't even realize exist in the game of futsal. And then the thing that hurts it is the small courts, all the games that are being played on basketball, on basketball size courts don't help, don't allow soccer coaches who are not too familiar with futsal really see the real game. And in a lot of cases we have no option. That's all we have. Even with our own futsal league, we play on a tiny little court. I mean, there's not many options out there. But until we can actually play games on a regulation sized court and really see the real game of futsal, at least the game of futsal that's being played everywhere around the world, I don't think people will really see the benefits of it.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I
Very
mean,
interesting.
it's like we were talking about
Yeah.
that right before you got on.
I know, right?
And, it's really awesome to hear you speak to both the benefits and the downsides of that small court, because without allowing the small court to be acceptable for games, there would be a lot of people that wouldn't get to play. But at the same time, because you have the small courts, a lot of people don't get to see how beautiful a game can be.
Yeah.
And so it's in the way that you talked earlier about the emotion being that like double-edged sword, so is the court size.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick fire questions for you that we can, just a one word or just a short phrase answer, and then you could chime in if you want. I know we didn't write any of these down beforehand, so if you want to get in there. And then I got one final question for you. So a couple of quick fire ones. What do you feel like has been the most challenging game for you guys thus far?
The beginning of this Imperial game was challenging.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's been the toughest part of the league, and actually the ending of the Lansing City game. That was a little, I think everybody was a little bit nervous towards those last 10
that one
minutes.
was a nail biter for sure.
That's what I was gonna ask, because if that goal doesn't go in off the goalie, it's a tie game, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And there was a lot of I can't remember the whole action, but players around the ground, I think, at the end of the game, and there was it was a classic, things kind of built up in the last few seconds, and it's is there going to be a whistle? And if it is, who's it going for? Is there going to be 6 foul penalty? Is there going to be so that one was very fun. You got a quick fire question?
Quick fire question. Only one name. Who's the best player in Ole?
Oh, we don't do it to him. Don't do it to him. All his players are watching. Oh my
The
goodness.
best players at Ole. I'll give it to our keepers.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The keepers.
You gave it to the keepers. What's your go-to pregame meal?
Oh, geez. I don't really have one, honestly.
No.
Whatever I have time to grab.
Whatever you have time to grab. What do you think is a particular? If you had to look at your upcoming schedule, do you have a game that's circled that's I feel like this one could be a really challenge or maybe sticks out for any particular reason?
I'm honestly looking forward to the next game we play Imperial, because I felt like we played a sloppy game, and I think it's important for myself and for our team to go back out and play some quality futsal against them.
Well, we'll be excited to see that one, and that will be at home for you guys. That'll be another fun one to catch. Got another quick fire one, or else we got the last question of the night right here.
All right, quick fire question. How long before we have a bio for all of your players?
I'm gonna have to get on them again.
Oh my goodness, you're just on a wild one tonight,
for those that don't know, on our website, on the Futsal Champions Series website, we have player bios on the roster. We're working on getting all of them, and Ole actually has been the best at getting those in. And so it's actually, as much of it's a jab, you don't have them all in, but you all have been great with it. The first team to get in the player photos with the bios, so it's been really cool working through that together.
I was about to ask if we were the last team to turn them all in.
Oh man, well we're excited to be able to get more and more info about players all across the league to tell their stories better and better every year. Another quick fire question coming from the chat from Juan. Actually, he said, "Where do you see?" Maybe this is not a quick fire question, but hey, this is where it's coming in. Where do you see Ole in 10 years?
Oh, geez,
that's a good one, right?
My goal is to see a professional futsal league in the U.S. and for us to be part of it.
Amazing. There you go. That was a quick fire answer.
Quick fire.
There we go. And then the last question, I had to end with this one because it was asked by, I'm sure your good friend, Aaron Gomez. He asked this question. He said, is it hard to have a very stacked team every year? And how do you handle the decision-making choices?
It honestly is difficult to not be able to invite everybody who shows interest or everybody that I'd love to have be part of our team. I mean, there's so many players there's so many players that have even played throughout our club, and it's just impossible to invite everybody. So for me, it's trying to find all the right pieces to really be able to pull off our playing style and have type of players that will be true to our playing style and be able to apply the things that we're working on at training. That's really what it
Awesome.
comes down
Very
to.
insightful answer to a question that I'm sure was maybe not as thought through, or not thought through. That's the wrong way to say it. Just a question that was probably meant to just be fun. Very insightful answer. Appreciate that. Well, Coach Fabian, thank you so much for your time, for being on the show. This was great fun. We loved all the participation of all of you guys in chat asking questions. This was great. We're excited to see you guys coming up soon. Do you remember who your next game is against?
I think it is Imperial. I don't think we have.
It is Imperial? Okay.
Imperial,
I couldn't quite
Midwest,
remember.
maybe.
I probably should have the schedule up right in front of me here. But we'll be excited to hopefully we can come on site and be there for that one. We always love doing that. But thanks again so much for your time, Fabian, and we're excited to see you and the rest of the team as the play continues in the FCS this year.
Well, thanks you guys for having me. It was fun.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you later.
Thanks.